whoa, ChatGPT just admitted that Jesus is God. Here's what happened. Now, there's only one single moment in the New Testament when one of Jesus' disciples directly called Jesus God to his face verbatim. Not teacher, not prophet, not Messiah, no illusions, but literally verbatim, my Lord and my God. It always puzzled me why this was the moment that was different. Why was this the Jesus is God moment? But when I discovered the meaning of these 3 Hebrew letters, I was so blown away that I put it all through ChatGPT to check the logic and the etymology to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating. Because, I'm no Hebrew linguist. I'm a hillbilly from Tennessee. And these things are complicated. And if you think it's simple, well then that's exactly the kind of oversimplification you'd expect from a postmodern neo-Marxist, obviously. Rollin, focus. Now you only need to know 3 things to have the same reaction that Thomas the disciple had in that moment. To help make this go faster, I'll start with a tiny side story. I work in the business and marketing space where I help entrepreneurs, boom, mic drop, explode their profits by using systems, strategy, and what I call sway. And one of my former clients turned friend is a well-known YouTuber, Myron Golden. So right now, I'm in a very unique place.
In his life.
Myron Golden's shameless plug.
Like, I know a lot of people who are great at sales, and I know a lot of people who are great at marketing. I only know 3 people in the world that, in my opinion, are great at both. Another one is Rollin Veneta. He's a guy who's on our team. I think he's brilliant at both.
I can't very well name drop someone like Myron without backing it up, especially if it's the first video on a channel. But there's another reason I bring up Myron's name. You see, I worked on and in his business and traveled with him on and off for about 2 years. Now, to be quite transparent, most of the time we spent together was actually geeking out over how biblical concepts apply to business. Now, one of the things, though, that I learned from him during that time was that Hebrew letters are very different from English letters, in that every letter in Hebrew is a number and also has a pictographic meaning. For example, the letter B doesn't mean anything. It just has a sound, B. But the equivalent letter in Hebrew is Beit, and it actually means a house, a tent, a dwelling place, an inner place. And if you find out what the individual Hebrew letters mean, then you find out very quickly that Hebrew words are constructed by the individual letter meanings. That means you can get even a deeper and richer understanding of what a word means or represents if you break down the individual letters and their symbolic meanings that build that word. And it is there that we unravel this mystery and make ChatGPT born again. And the secret lies in these 3 Hebrew letters found in one of the most popular stories in the history of the Bible. Now, most people remember the story of Moses and the burning bush. Moses is out there with his sheep doing his thing, and suddenly he sees a bush that's on fire, but it's not burning up. So he goes to investigate. It's kind of a strange story. God tells him to take off his shoes. He makes his staff turn into a serpent and decides to give him an occupation change. He won't be shepherding sheep any longer. He's going to be sent as a representative of God to go and demand that the most powerful king on earth, the Pharaoh, has to let his people who were owned as slaves in Egypt by Pharaoh to become free. Now, Moses understandably asked God, now, if I'm going to do this, what's your name so that I can tell Israel what's going on? Now, at first, God says the famous I am that I am phrase. But most people never talk about this next thing that God says, which seems at first glance as totally unassuming, but is actually jaw-dropping. He says, moreover, tell the Israelites that the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, have sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. Now that word memorial really caught my eye. The Hebrew word zecher is a noun that means remembrance. memorial. In biblical contexts, it typically refers to the act of recalling or making known something significant, particularly in relation to God's acts or covenant. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines memorial as a structure or an object built to remind people of a person or an event. So what is it that is a memorial in this context? Well, in this verse, it is Lord. And Lord here isn't a title, it's an actual name. He says it right here in the verse itself. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. And if memorial is a means of remembrance, then that name must then be a structure by definition that is built for the purpose of remembering. Now, here are where things get spicy. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, Lord in Lord God. And it is actually the name that the Jews even today still won't speak out loud because it is such a holy name, so secret, so mysterious that no one even knows for sure how to even pronounce it. So let's break down this name letter by letter in order to uncover what kind of structure of remembrance got Thomas all shook up. When Thomas uttered the phrase, "My Lord and my God," it wasn't a random aha while walking down the streets of Jerusalem, but instead it was right after Jesus had already risen from the dead and appeared to the other disciples. But Thomas had missed that first visit. When he came back, the disciples were like, the roof is on fire. They were celebrating Jesus' resurrection, and he thought they were all nuts. Here's what he said. "Unless I see the prints of nails in his hands, I will not believe." Now, y'all didn't know that Thomas sounded like an old TV preacher, did you? Now, in that moment of disbelief and rejection is the moment Jesus appears bodily in front of Thomas and says this, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." That's the moment Thomas bursts out with, "My Lord and my God." Now, you might think that this is all because he saw him crucified and then he's resurrected now. But if you remember, Thomas by this time had already seen Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead. So that might cause him to say, "My Lord," but "My God"? I figured that there must be something deeper here that I was missing. And boy, was there. Oh boy, was there. So unlike English, Hebrew is read from right to left. And so we start with the Yud, which is the smallest Hebrew letter, and that is actually a hand, okay? Now we got this letter right here, which is the Hey, and the Hey means behold. And then we've got the Vav, and the Vav is actually a nail. And then we've got, of course, another Hey. And if you read this in English, if you put this together, we've got God saying to Moses something like, "This is my memorial. Here is how you will know me for all generations. Behold the hand, behold the nail. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob." So imagine that you're Thomas, and you've been taught Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, the Exodus. You probably have it memorized. And Jesus, who you just spent 3 years with, was just killed and put into a tomb. And suddenly he appears to you in the flesh, bodily, and looks at you and says something like, "Hey, remember all that memorial talk? Hold my hands and behold the hands and behold the nail." The only proper response to that is to fall to your knees and say, "My Lord and my God." Now remember, I was running all this through ChatGPT as a kind of double check on myself because I didn't want to see something that wasn't really there. Now, by the end of it all, I asked ChatGPT that given the fact that these Hebrew letters look remarkably similar in pictorial story to Jesus on the cross 1,400 years before that ever happened, even 800 years before crucifixion was invented, if it were asked to calculate the probability of that occurring, would it be more statistically plausible to conclude that it was coincidental or that it was divinely inspired? And here's what it said. Based on the binary choice between coincidence and divine inspiration, and given the statistical analysis that we previously discussed, the more statistical probable position would be divine inspiration. Mic drop moment. Ladies and gentlemen, behold the hand, behold the nail. My Lord and my God.